Hello, everybody, and good morning to you. Happy Sunday to you guys. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying your day, starting off on a positive note. Of course, we're still just rocking in the new year with more and more episodes, great conversation, amazing people. And we're just going to keep bringing it, y'all. We're just going to keep bringing it. And for everyone tuning in this morning, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in and welcome to the show. If this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And of course, this is a live stream. So if you guys have any questions that that you would like to have answered, please put them in the comment section. We're gonna be sure to get them answered as we go along. Um, Monty Mar, thank you, Monty Mar 2020. Hello, thank you for tuning in from Cali, Colombia. Thank you for tuning in, and for everyone else, let us know where you're from, right? And again, you know what I'm saying? Sit back and enjoy the show. Ask questions as we go. Now, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say that this is for educational purposes only. So, without further ado, I'm bringing on my next guest. She is truly amazing. Martha, how you doing to the show? Welcome to the show.
Thanks. So happy to be here.
Man, how you doing this beautiful morning?
Doing absolutely fabulous.
Awesome, awesome. Now, before we get started, tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
All righty. Well, to begin with, the very first thing I feel a need to talk about is the fact that I was an unwanted child. Let's start at the very beginning.
Yeah.
My family, my father drank and gambled all the money, and I had two older brothers. One at the time, let's see, before I was born, he was about one and a half. My other brother was 6 or 7, and there was no money. And my dad was an alcoholic and a gambler, so there was no food. So my mother was very very concerned. When she was expecting me, how am I going to feed this child? So I was basically not I don't know if I can use the word unwanted. I was very it was unfortunate for her, and she was very very concerned. So my mother always loved me, but I always had that underlying feeling that I shouldn't have been there, and I was a hardship for my mother. Now, why am I saying that? Because this is a show about grief, and sometimes our grief, in fact, this moves me right now. Our grief starts from the very beginning, and I can
Mhm.
remember being a very young child and feeling that sense of not belonging or not being wanted. So this will be a very interesting show. Now, how did I get over that? Well, it took years and years and a lot of therapy. And my mother was a loving mother. She cared for me very much, but I always knew that I was a burden. That's the word, the burden. I think that grief sometimes comes from when we believe that we're a burden. Anyway, so I went on and I got a master's degree. I got a PhD, in fact, all but dissertation. I taught child psychology for 10 years at the college level. I was a high school special education teacher for 16 years. And then I wrote a book, Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children. And I wrote that book in response to my own son. When he was young, he was spoiled rotten. Because why? Because we did everything for him and we always said yes and we never said no. And that is certainly a recipe for disaster. So now that I'm retired, I have more time and I give parenting lessons. And also, I am very involved in the addiction recovery community. So every Monday, I go to the jail to talk to the addicts and alcoholics, the females. And every Wednesday, I go to the treatment center. And I've been doing that for about 3 years. And that's me in a nutshell, Martha Burich.
All right. Now let's break this down, because I mean I think the word unwanted or feeling unwanted is the perfect thing to say when you feel that way, right? Because you're entitled to feel that way, and you grew up in a household where dad is gambling, mom is struggling, and all of these different things. Now, as a child, let's back up a little bit. As a child, from what you've seen, right, and all of these different feelings, how does a child navigate this, right? Watching mom struggle, but watching dad um, sometimes when people are in addiction and things like that, they don't realize the damage that they do. I've seen it
Mm.
from the inside out, and coming from a place where I was an alcoholic. Fortunately for me, the only damage I did was to myself. right? Drinking and things. No, I take that back. I take that back. When I was drinking, I was a bit of a butthole. I was an asshole, right? Um, Pick fights with everybody, ruined a lot of relationships, things like that. So I stand corrected on that. Now, watching this as a child, because children don't know, sometimes don't know how to process these emotions, right? They don't know how to process the situation, right? But they do it in their own way. How did you process this by watching all of these different things? Was there like a escape that you went to? Was there like um, something that you did to help make sense out of your life?
Well, when I was younger, I didn't process it very well, and I took it the entirely wrong way. Some children are very defiant, and they're like, "Well, I'm not going to put up with that. You're not going to say that to me, or I don't
Mhm.
believe you." When people say negative things to them, or they see things, but I took it all in and blamed myself for everything. So it really made my life really difficult because I too, started drinking at an early age and got kicked out of two colleges for drinking. And even though, I learned to, I don't know, control really isn't the word. I knew enough that I could not take one drink. So I managed to not take a drink, not even to start, to get through, finally get through college and to get some things done and to be good at my jobs and things. But come the weekends, during the weekday and work, I would never drink, but or very rarely. But come the weekend, I couldn't get to the bottle quick enough, and that's one way you know you're an alcoholic is that for one thing you think about it all the time, so it wastes so much mental energy. But also, if you have one, you can't just have one. I mean, it's very rare. Once in a while, it might happen, but once you have one, you set up that craving, and next thing you know, one's too many, and 50's not enough. So
Cool.
yes, and
You
it
know,
is difficult for children to
yeah.
navigate, and that's why adults we need to grow up. But to address what you said, Tony, about how you only hurt yourself, and then you corrected yourself. Yes, alcoholics and drug addicts are tornadoes. I
Hmm.
remember talking to and because usually we're in a blackout, we had no idea what happened, what we said, what we did. And then when people are shocked the next day and say things to us like, "Well, I didn't say that. Oh, you're taking it too hard." Well, usually a lot of times we black out and don't remember. And so everyone else is left carrying the weight and the hurt. And I remember a father one time, he told us at a meeting, I was at an AA meeting, and he said his son was in prison. And I came up to him after the meeting and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, your son's in prison." And he goes, "I'm not. I know my son is safe in jail. He can't get
Mm.
hooked drugs. I know he'll be alive." That just touched my heart. Imagine being a parent and being glad your child is in jail. And and it touches me so much because I see these women in jail. And I had one woman say to me once, "I've been coming to jail since I was 18. I'm 33. I think I'm tired. I think I'm tired. I don't want to come to jail anymore." And that was more than a year ago. So I'm thinking maybe she's finally figured it out.
I want to touch on that. You said two things. You know, the father whose son was in prison. You know, the way that he felt about it. A lot of parents do feel that way.
Mhm.
The crazy part about it is, I'm gonna speak from my own perspective. When I went to prison, I told myself this will be the only time that my parents would know where I am and not have to worry. Because before then, I ripped and ran the streets. I was gang banging, selling
Mhm.
drugs, fighting, you name it, I was doing it, right? And so I didn't stay in contact with my parents. I didn't stay in contact with none of my family. It was every time they turned around, they had to wonder not if they was going to get a phone call saying, "Hey, your son just got killed,"
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
something like that. Um, and I remember when I went to prison, when they gave me my sentence, because before when I was in the county jail, I didn't call my mom. I didn't call nobody. But when I got my sentence, I called my mom. I said, Mom, I'm going to prison for 5 years. She said, now I know where you are.
Mm.
I said, yes, ma'am. I said, but I need you to do me a favor. Don't write me.
Mm.
I don't want to be worried about what's going on out there. You know where I am. So don't write me. I can't survive in here with you, with knowing how
Mm.
you feel of it out there. Just know that I'm going to be okay. And if not,
Mm.
then it is what it is.
Mm.
And the one thing about that parent that said that about his son, unfortunately, it's not a true statement because in prison, yes, it's more easily accessible to get those drugs than anything else. So I don't really I don't know if he fully understood that or not. And
Right.
that's that reality to have. Um, the second was, the young lady that went to prison. Yeah, I've been there too, right? Been in and out of jail so many doggone times where I was just like, I'm so sick and tired of going to jail.
Mm.
Now here's a downside to it is hopefully I really, really pray that she did find a way to keep her butt from going to jail. No human being, unless you're just the scum of the earth and you deserve to be in there, no human being is an animal.
Mm.
And so being locked up kind of puts you in an animalistic mentality to where
Mm.
sometimes it becomes addictive, right?
Mm.
I know that if I go to jail, especially if you're homeless, right?
Mm.
Crazy part about it was I did the same thing. I did the same thing when I was homeless. And when it got cold, I would go break them. Like I would do stuff so they could come lock me up for 4 or 5, 6 months. So
Mm.
I have a roof over top of my head, and they let me out. I'm
Mm.
back to running the streets again, right? Now I was
Mm.
never into drugs or anything like that. Um, but I really hope that that young lady did find a way to keep from going back. Maybe I
Mm.
really hope that she is tired of going in there. The downside to it is I really hope that she's not institutionalized.
Mm.
You get so used to going in and seeing people, right?
Mm.
That becomes the next place. Hey, I'm gonna go to jail. I know such and such is in there. I know everybody.
Mm.
That's bad when you come out and you go, yeah, I know everybody in there, and that becomes just like your second home. So
Mm.
as a parent and things like we want the best for our children, and we want the best for ourselves as well. So now, and I say that to say this because there's a lot of grief that goes on with that. There's a sense of loss of identity. There's a loss of freedom. There's a loss of just purpose, direction. There's abandonment issues. There's trust issues,
Mm.
things like that. Now, through your own opinion, what are your thoughts on all of those? Because you had the firsthand experience of seeing this, right? And
Mm.
having to walk with these individuals, helping them navigate this as well.
Purpose and direction. You said it, Tony. For some reason, too many people have no purpose and direction in their lives. They don't see a compelling future. They don't see that the future that their future can be good. And I don't even worry about the future. I always say, you know what, yesterday's gone, and you can't live off whatever you did yesterday. Every day's a new day, and tomorrow's not here. I only have today to be the best person I can be and to get as much done today as I can,
Yeah.
and go to bed with a clear mind and a happy heart. And I see too many of the women at the jail. They bounce back and forth from the jail to the treatment center, jail to the treatment center. And I tell them, these are both artificial environments. Whatever it is that's bothering you, it isn't going to be solved here, because you're going to go right back out to your real world. The same people, the same triggers, the same, things you need to avoid that you haven't been able to avoid yet. How are you going to navigate those? I always have them tell me, um, what are your plans when you get out of here to stay sober and drug free? What are your plans? Because if you don't plan to win, you are planning to fail. you
Hmm.
know, and I plan to win. But when I retired, I did lose my purpose, and that's when I started drinking, because then, up until that time, I always had, I was a teacher, and I always had a lot of pride, had a lot of pride in my work. I was a good teacher, and I really loved the kids, and I loved designing, lessons that people enjoyed and learned from. But then when I retired, that was gone, and I didn't make myself um, create a new future for myself. So the next thing you know, I'm drinking every day, and then I can't quit. So
Hmm.
it's because I did not have a compelling future. And Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl was a victim in a concentration camp, and he designed the therapy. He called it logotherapy. But really, what it is about is purpose and meaning. What's your purpose and meaning? Because when we have purpose and meaning in our lives, we can get through anything. You've heard of these stories of people with cancer who said, if I can just walk my daughter down the aisle, I'm going to live that long until I could just get my child out of high school. And you hear story after story of that because they had a purpose, a reason to live. And so, too often, we don't have purpose because we don't believe that we can have what we really want. And that's another thing that I talk about in parenting, and that is letting your child fail. And let me give you an example. Your 8-year-old comes home from school and they say, they're having a play at school. They're having a play at school. I'm going to go for the lead. And the parent, oh, I'm glad they're having a play, but oh, honey, oh, the lead. Oh, you might not get it. Why don't you try out to be one of the frogs? You'll probably get that role. Well, then, here, how many people do you know who don't go after what they really want? They go after what they think they can get. And I,
Right.
I did that for so much of my life, even though, I did strive and I became a college professor, which is what I really, really wanted. And I became a high school science teacher, which is what I really, really wanted. But a lot of times in my life, I did not really go for the things I really wanted, thinking that, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough for that. Oh, I don't know if I'll get that. Maybe I won't even try, you know. So you see a lot of people around you who don't even try. And if we're not even going to try, then that lessens our lives. And then we start thinking, well, you know what? I, I'm bored. I'll have a drink. I'm bored. I'll have a drug. I'm bored. I'll go hang out with these people who are really bad for me, who don't have any aspirations, who don't ascribe to be anything better than what they are. And next thing you know, you're sitting around in bars and who knows where else, being useless or sitting playing video games all day, sitting in front of television. I stopped watching television in 2007. I totally got rid of my TV, and it's the best thing. Really, it's one of the absolute best things that I ever did for myself. And I really am being much more aware of my social media use, the time that I'm wasting there, because what happens is when you do that, other people are telling you what to think and believe.
Mm.
So I try to be very deliberate about the information that I let in. So I'm real particular. I go to YouTube and look for information that I want to know, that I want to learn, and I do a lot of YouTube videos where I learn things. How to use this new AI, how to use this program, how to do that.
I got a question. Because as you were speaking, I was going, man, when we talk about drugs and alcohol, and how people use it, I often listen to their stories as well. A lot of these individuals grew up by themselves. They had a hard life, hard time making friends and things like that. And but when they started doing the drugs and the alcohol, they became more sociable. They became more communicative, and wanted to be a part of society. It's just the people that they hung around with made them feel wanted and things like that. So I guess my question would be, do you think that's the reason why most people go and do drugs? I mean, because I know I have my thoughts about it, right? I believe that in a lot of ways, people do these things to cover up what's actually happening with them, like to
Mm.
deal with trauma. That's their escape from the reality that they live in, and it's creating a different reality where they feel more comfortable, more accepted within, right? And it, and I think that's where the addiction comes from one of those, oh, I'm only going to do it once in a while, to where, you know what I'm saying, oh, I need it every day. Then it's like I need it multiple times out of the day. And I often see a lot of individuals that do this. And when they go around people, they're like, hey, I got this, right? And everybody comes around, they feel wanted, they feel welcome. It's just the destructiveness that comes along with it. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Why do you
Well,
think that is?
once when you first start, yes, of course, in the beginning, alcohol and drugs, they put you into a different reality, and whatever problems you have seem to disappear for that period of time. And
Mhm.
yes, there's probably a long period of time that some people can continue to do drugs and alcohol, and everything's okay. But once it turns on you, baby, it's not turning back. It's not going to become your friend. And once you start getting in trouble, one person said, I don't drink because I'm, a, I'm allergic. Every time I drink, I break out in handcuffs.
Mm.
Another person said, I didn't get in trouble every time I drank, but every time I got in trouble, I had been drinking. So once it turns on you, you start getting those drunk driving arrests, do whatever while intoxicated. You start causing problems at home, and once you start thinking when you're going to get your next drink, you're past the point. You're past the point. And it's time to get control. Yes, in the beginning, and there are people who have had wonderful upbringings. Their parents were loving, caring people. They Nobody hurt them or did anything to them, but they still became alcoholics. Why? Because we're selfish. When we live in industrialized countries, or I'm going to use, I guess, progressive. We'll use the word progressive. When you live in a place where your food is basically taken care of, maybe you don't have all kinds of money, but you always have food to eat, transportation. You basically you have a job. Most of your most of the things we need are taken care of, even if we're really poor. A lot homeless people have shelters to live in. In a lot of cases. So we live in these environments where all of our needs are basically met. Well, then we have to find meaning in our lives, and we have to find usefulness. And what happens to us, especially in these type of countries, is we're so self-centered. We are
Mm.
raised self-centered. If we go back, Tony, let's go back 100 years, 1920. Even in 1920, the majority of the countries still people had farms, lived on farms. Now you had animals. So let's say there were five children in the family, six children. If mom or dad died, you had to get up, and even if they were alive, you had to get up. You had to feed the animals. You had to get the chicken eggs. You had to, take care of things. And if one of your parents died, well, that body could be laying there. You still had to get up, feed those animals. I don't care if it was negative 20 degrees outside. Your job was to make sure those animals are fed because those animals were your food.
Mhm.
So they had to be taken care of first, no matter what the weather. So you would go out and take care of those animals before you got fed. And then, so if one of your parents is dead, well, then everybody else had to step up. The 5-year-old used to take care of the baby back in
Mhm.
those days. Everybody had a job and a responsibility, and they felt a sense of usefulness more so, I think, than today. That's why it's so important that your children have jobs from the beginning. If your baby's 6 months old, they can hand you their cup, can't they? Well, give me the cup. We'll put it in the sink. Or here, put the cup in the sink, and you can hold the baby and let her put it in the sink. Start getting your children jobs and chores because they're part of that family. And if we don't have responsibilities, we become self-centered and think only of ourselves. And then
Mhm.
it's to the point where we say and do things that hurt others, but we don't even really notice because it's what we want. Well, this is what I want. I don't care about you. And sometimes we don't think that. We think that we're so unselfish, but in actuality, do we really think about what others need and want? How often? And a lot of times people will tell me they're lonely. Well, if you're lonely, because I used to be very lonely, very, very lonely. I was very introverted, pretty much afraid of the world. I had to practice saying hello to people with a therapist when I was 16. And you know what my problem was? Extreme self-centered. People who
Mm.
think lowly of themselves are just as bad as people who think too much of themselves. It's all ego. Oh, I'm so terrible. I'm such a bad person. I had a woman at the jail say to me, why would God forgive me if he won't forgive the devil? And I remember thinking to myself, okay, we got an ego problem. We got an ego problem. If you could even begin to compare your wrongdoings to anything the devil did, we got an ego problem. And I said, well, you know, hon, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to look it up. So I did. I went home and I scoured the internet for why didn't God forgive the devil? Well, one, the devil never asked for forgiveness. That's number one. So if you ask for forgiveness, you will be forgiven, provided you really want it and you intend to change and to do the things you need to do to be a better human being.
I love that. We got a comment from LinkedIn, Brenda Sis. Hopefully, I'm saying that the correct way. If I am not doing that, please don't cuss me out too bad. Okay, I do apologize. But they say it was during their 20-year addiction when they had became sick and tired of being sick and tired. They had been to every rehab from Colorado to Texas, Colorado in the house, in Fort Collins up here, been to Texas as well, trying to get sober. So the thought came to their mind that they had a warrant for their arrest, knew they would be sentenced to 1 year, and while they were incarcerated, they went to AA meetings and met with the Aurora mental health counselors. Always a blessing, always a blessing. To make a long story short, AMH made it possible for them to get housing and medication and have been sober for 17 years now. Brenda, I want to say that is truly amazing. Truly, truly amazing. Thank you for making a difference and being a change that you want to see. And thank you for AMH for giving you the opportunity to be able to do that. I can't wait to hear more about it and everything. And so I'm gonna take that comment and leave it up there. Martha, what you think about that?
Exactly. She got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And one day she said, you know what? I'm better than this. I'm better than this. Is this going to be my life? You know, that's what I tell the ladies at the jail. In fact, um, one of the ladies at the jail was just telling me how she had tried to evade the law for years, thinking that she was going to go to jail for 5 years. And then one day she thought, you know what? I'm tired of hiding. I'm just going to turn myself in. So she did, and she wound up getting like 2 months. She thought she was going to get 5 years because she had done the same thing before and gotten years for it. But anyway, I guess laws had changed. But here she was in jail again, and she said, you know, here I was afraid, and drinking and drugging every day, being afraid. And now here I am in jail, and I'm sober, and I'm happy. I'm actually sitting in jail happy because, you know, I get to come to these meetings, and I'm learning how to deal with my feelings. And I'll be out soon. I can start a new life. So yes, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, yeah, it's time to change, and it's time to grow up. See, our problem is we're all big babies. We're all big babies. Oh, this didn't go my way. Oh, this didn't happen right. Oh, it's raining today. Oh, I got a flat tire. Oh, you know, my children aren't behaving. Blah, blah, blah. Welcome to the real world. Welcome to the real world. And, you know, let's talk about 100. You know what? 100 things are going to happen to aggravate you today. 100 things. But also, you're going to do 1,000 things right. Just getting out of bed is doing something right. You know, if your car starts, you're blessed. I took an auto mechanics course decades ago, and the teacher said, look, if your car won't start, it's an aggravation. If it won't stop, it could be your life. So you be grateful every time that car starts, and you make sure you check your brakes.
So, I love that. I love that.
Yes, every day, you know, sometimes I'll say to myself, oh my goodness, now what do I have to learn? Or some new computer thing I have to put up with, or, you know, I have to figure this out, or the dog needs to go out and I'm in the middle of something, or, you know, some little aggravations, 24 hours a day. Okay. In fact, one time I was aggravated. I was washing dishes, and I live with my brother. He's got 36 years of sobriety, my older brother, and my son, and he lives with us too. Anyway, so I'm whining to myself. I'm washing the dishes, and I'm like, boy, does nobody wash a dish around here but me? Which is totally not true. They wash their own, but once in a while they'll leave one or two in there. Okay, so I'm washing these dishes and I'm whining to myself. Am I the only person that does the dishes? So ridiculous. I mean, totally unrealistic. And I look out the window. There's my brother cutting the grass, and there's my son on a ladder cleaning the gutters. And I said, "There you go, Martha. There you go. Do you want to cut the grass? Do you want to clean the gutters? Or do you want to wash the dishes?" No contest. No contest. So, a lot of times the things we think to ourselves are so not true. I was really aggravated the other day. I thought someone didn't get my message. I thought my son didn't get my message or just ignored it, just ignored my message. Well, I look out the window. He's shoveling snow. He didn't get my message because he was shoveling the snow. See, we think so many things that are completely wrong, but we use them to get ourselves all aggravated or annoyed or frustrated. And one day, I'll tell you this story, Tony. I'm driving down the road, and it's a road that's 55, and the woman in front of me is doing like 40, and I'm getting aggravated. I can't believe this. I'm getting aggravated. Like, why is this woman going so slow? And I'm all aggravated. And I said, "Martha, hold up a minute here. You can pass her. There's no other cars coming. Pass her." And I said, "No, I don't feel like it." I'd rather get mad and aggravated for nothing. No,
Yeah.
I'll just sit back here and drive slow.
No,
Oh,
I totally get that though. I totally get that. Some years ago, um, I'm just gonna go back. Some years ago when my son was alive, I remember driving with him, and I just picked him up from school. And is semi rush hour traffic, and I really don't live too far from the school, right? I live probably about 5 miles away from the school, and I'm driving, and he's sitting in the seat next to me, watching out the window, talking, telling me about his day at school, and it just seemed like everybody I got behind was doing 5 to 10 minutes, 5 to 10 miles below the speed limit. And I was, and my son's watching because I'm like, and he thinks that I'm getting mad at him, right? His little brain is like, "Dad, did I do something wrong?" I was like, "Oh shoot!" I had to check myself. I literally had to check myself. I said, "No, Bubba, you're not doing anything wrong. It's not you." But see, he can't see what I see, right? Only thing he can see with his little head, because his forehead is just above not even just above the console, right? The dashboard. So he can't see. And so he's watching me as he's telling me about his day. And so I told myself, I said, from here on out, I need to stop and not be so quick to judge, because I don't know what's going on in their lives. And I'm gonna tell you, the one thing, it saved me one time, and it helped me really deeply understand in this situation. I was getting off of work, and I'm tired. I just want to go home, right? I want to pick up my brother. I want to go home, grab something to eat, lay down on the couch and watch a little TV, feed him and go to daggone sleep, right? Whatever our day looked like for that day. I'm driving, and either a person is going too fast or they're going too slow. This person comes zooming by me, and I'm like, "Lord," and then I stopped and I caught myself. I said, "What if that person is speeding because there's an emergency?" Slow it down. Don't judge. Let's just see what's going on. Arthur, I'm gonna tell you, doing that right there opened up my eyes, because now I'm driving. I'm driving in the same direction he's going through, and on the highway there's this major accident. Major accident. It's bad. It's pretty bad. The car that zoomed past me was the husband of the wife and the child that was hit by a semi.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
He was rushing to the scene.
Wow.
And as I was going, I just stopped. I said, "Please forgive me, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
Teach me to have a little bit more patience and understanding." And ever since then, I stopped judging people. I was like, "You know what? No more," because you don't know.
Because what's our job? Our job is to drive safely and mind our own business.
Right.
I don't know why they're driving slow, fast, whatever. one day, this is like 10 years ago, my son and I was driving. He was in the passenger seat, and he said, that guy behind us is giving you the finger, Mom. So I just waved. I said, well, honey, I'm a slow driver. That's just how it is. He can pass me. I'm not going to have a fit. If he wants to have a fit, that's his business. I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah. You know, same thing here, right? So I was driving. I was going to go do something, and I'm watching this guy. Like I'm very observant around me because I'm very defensive slash offensive driver, depending on the situation I'm in. And I'm
Uh-huh.
driving, and I see this guy bouncing in and out of traffic, and he's driving very erratically. And red lights coming. I'm looking at it, and I'm about ready to stop, and he comes about this close to my bumper,
Mm.
right? And then he could see me watching him out the mirror, out my rearview mirror. He goes, "Mwah," and all like this. I said, okay, I got you. I got you. So he don't know what I look like. I'm 6'4", 265 pounds. I'm solid. I'm a solid dude. But you can't tell me, you can't tell sitting inside of the vehicle,
Uh-huh.
right? So now we're taking off. He bounces up on the net on the side of me, and he's creeping up on me. And we go to the next light, and it turns red again. I just did like this. I said, okay, let's see what his reaction is. So as he pulls up beside me, he's staring into the window. I got tint on my window, so you can't really see it. So I take it and I pull down. I start to roll down my window. He starts to roll down his too. So I get down to the bottom. I looked around and I looked at him. That man looked at me, eyes got big. I said, hey, I really hope your insurance is good because if you would have hit me, not only would you have needed health insurance, but you would have needed car insurance too, because I would have taken your door with me. I would have ripped the door off and just taken it with me. I'm not even worried about the car, but you would have had to get your vehicle repaired. And that man looked at me, he went to go try to roll up his window. I said, no, 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 don't roll it up now because you thought that I was somebody that wasn't going to say anything to you.
Mm.
I said, but now that you see that, I'm not afraid to roll down my window and address the situation. I said, my
Mm.
man, look, accidents happen all the time. I get it. You're in a rush, maybe to do nothing. But be considerate about the people that you're rushing up on because this is the nice me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Next person may not be so nice.
Mm.
They end up killing you.
That's right.
So please keep that in mind. Be mindful of what you're doing. Just because you have a vehicle doesn't give you the right to misuse.
Hmm.
Your vehicle is a weapon. Stop weaponizing. Get to where you got to get to safely. Make sure that the people around you get to where they have to get to safely.
Hmm.
Don't be an asshole because assholes get killed. And I hate to have to look on the news one day and see your vehicle and then somebody done something to you, man, for no reason,
Right.
right? So now I say that to say this because I want to go back to what Brenda said, and it's something that I was really, really thinking about. Um, Version of rock bottom, right? And this has been a question that I've posed to recovery coaches and counselors and things like that. Why is it that we all have to hit our version of rock bottom before we make a decision to want to do something different?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's fear. We don't know. We don't know what life is like otherwise. A lot of times we just don't know. And everybody's rock bottom is different. Some people are rock bottom is homeless. They lose everything. Some people don't lose anything. They just realize, wait a minute, I'm wasting too much time doing this.
Mm,
And so, yeah, rock bottom is different for everybody. I had one man at the treatment center. He was homeless, and and I ask him every time in my group. I say, "What are your plans when you get out of here to stay sober?" And he said, "Well, if I have to go back home, if I'm homeless again, if they don't find a place for me to live, I don't know that I can," which is understandable. I could see that.
mhm,
And I think 3 months later, he showed up again, and he was about 30 pounds heavier. And he talked about how he they found a place for him to live. He was in a sober living place, and he had gained weight. And when he told us this, then I remembered him, and I said, "Weren't you here? Aren't you the one who said you were homeless?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "I'm gonna get touched up. I'll touched again." I said, "God answered all your prayers. Look at you. You're well fed. You've got a roof over your head." And and he hadn't had a drink for, for 3 months. I don't think a drug either. I think sometimes they send him. There's some kind of financial thing. I'm really not sure. But
Mhm.
anyway, so he had been sober and drug free for months. And I said, "God has answered your prayers. You're a miracle. Your life is a miracle. You need to show people that all you have to do is do the right thing. When you do the right thing, you become a good example for others. And just all you got to do is today, even if it's
Yeah.
5 minutes at a time. You know, I live one day at a time. That's all I can control. Just today. It's all I got. And you don't even know if you have today. I have the next 5 minutes, if even that. A plane could come and
Yeah.
crash into the house. We don't know. So, you know
Yeah.
what? If you're thinking about saying something mean to somebody, shut up. Shut up. Nobody needs to hear something mean. Keep it to yourself. You know, that's when people take you out of their quality world and they avoid you.
Yeah.
Keep your mouth shut. If you have an opinion, let me give you an example, Tony. I'm at a meeting one time, AA meeting. Oh, this is years ago. And this young man, he's about 30. Oh, F word. Every other word. F and this, F and that. Well, that's not nice in my mind. So after the meeting, I'm talking to this old timer. This guy had been sober like 30 something years. And I said, I'm going to have to talk to that young man about his the way he swears. And the old timer said to me, he goes, "Why? Are you his mother?" "No." "You're going to give him a job?" "No." "Did he ask you for your advice?" "No." "Then keep your mouth shut. It's none of your business. He can talk the way he wants to talk." That certainly put me in my place. But I have to think to myself, he's really right. If the child wants my advice, he'll ask for it. Did he ask for my advice? No. So often we give people advice. They don't need it. They don't
Right.
want it.
They don't want it.
Keep your opinions to yourself. What are you Miss America? Is your life so great that you can tell everybody else how to live? A lot of times people sober up. They're sober 4 days a week. They're in treatment. Suddenly they want to tell everybody how to live. Please, please. Why don't you
You know,
just listen? Why don't you just listen?
why don't you just exactly? Why don't you just listen? I was just saying this yesterday at a meeting that I was at. They were saying they were asking, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Mm,
Listening to everybody, they were like, I would love to be invisible. I would love to have super strength. I would love to have all of these different things. And I thought to myself, there was one thing always missing. We can all go after these superficial superpowers and things like that, but let's look at the reality. I said if I
mhm,
had a superpower, I would like it to be empathy.
mm,
They said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Because when you're empathetic to other people, you take the time to listen. You take
mhm.
the time to understand them without judgment. You take the time to be compassionate with them. You take the time to want to hold space with them, be in a
Right.
moment with them, not make it about you. You look at things from a different perspective." I said, "But now see, here's the thing about those who are very empathetic. They're the ones who have walked the most difficult paths.
Mm,
You suffer. You go through some of the most craziest things. And not saying that one story is more darker than the next, because every story is dark. Everything that you've experienced, because it's yours, it's personable, right? It's what you do with it
that's
that
right.
makes you the empathetic person that you are. Now you can become bitter or you can become better.
Mm,
That's just
that's
bottom line,
good.
right? You know what I'm saying? You can seek to want something different, or you can seek to want the same and let that digress, right? You know what I'm saying? Let that digress on you, meaning that let that thing keep going down and down and down, and to where it can't go any further. And then I want to see you climb yourself out, because that's going to be the most empathetic person coming out, because not only did they have to go through that, but they had to develop the tools.
That's right.
Out. They become the change that they want to see. So
Exactly.
That's why you never take away from anybody's stories, right? You know what I'm saying? I think they're all precious things to be able to share with anyone else, which now leads me, because listening to you, and I'm just like, wow, there's one thing that I want to finish putting the puzzle pieces together of your life now, and I want to talk about your dad, right? Did he ever reach his version of rock bottom? I mean, from what you've seen,
It's
the
yeah.
addiction, the gambling, the drinking, and things like that. And then my second, this is a two-part question. And so the second part of that question is, how did your mother eventually heal from that, or did she?
Let's go back to Dad. My father. This is so. This is just upsetting. My father was a prisoner of war of the Germans in World War II for 2 years before any of us were born. Now, that kind of experience is going to change someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it changed my father. And I think when he came home, that's when he was drinking very heavy. Now, my brother and I have always, my dad, most alcoholics, their personality changes as they drink. They either become happier or they become mean.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our dad was the same person, whether he had no drinks in him or a fifth. And by the time I knew him, I think he was drinking probably a fifth a day, that I can remember. He was a very heavy drinker, and my brother and I kind of discussed this. Was he an alcoholic or a heavy drinker? I don't know. He must have been an alcoholic because he let his family starve. So he was more concerned with drinking than making sure his children had food on the table. So I don't know. And my parents divorced when I was young, and I only saw my dad, in the summers for a long time. So I didn't really know him very much as a person. But he was always a nice human being. He was never mean. So part you know part of me says, can you blame him? And I've met a lot of veterans, and all of them, every one of them that I've met, has said to me, no matter their age, has said to me, I don't like to be with um, anyone but other veterans. Because no one else understands what I've been through.
Yeah.
They're the only ones who understand. And when they tell me some of the things they've been through, and that's some pretty harrowing stuff. And we're talking about today. Things that they witnessed in the Middle East, the things that they witnessed in Vietnam, things that they witnessed. And I would imagine that is a very, very hard burden to carry, and to know what to do with when you see the absolute lowest and most evil of humans. How do you translate that? But to try to forget it. So, sometimes you can certainly understand why some people become addicts and alcoholics, but then again, that was yesterday, and yesterday's gone. You have to figure out a way to deal with it. Just like Viktor Frankl said in Man's Search for Meaning, you need to find meaning in your life, and
Mm-hmm.
you need to come to some kind of terms with that evil that you witnessed. And I don't know how you do that. Each person is different, and each person has to handle it in their own way. But I would think, number one, you do need to be with people who know what you're going through. And that's why the veterans who have said, I just want to be with other veterans. It makes a lot of sense, because people on the outside have no idea what you've witnessed and what you've been through. So just
Right.
like, heavily abused children and everything, most people have no idea what they've been through. But one woman who's been sober 38 years, when she told me her story about her father had Rottweilers, and he would get drunk and come home, and he would let the dogs bite her. He would say to her, "Come downstairs." She was 8 years old. He would say, "Come downstairs," and she goes, "No, the dogs are going to bite me." He goes, "If you don't come downstairs, I'm going to send the dogs up." She would have to walk down those stairs knowing that he was going to let the dogs attack her. Just, I mean, that's unimaginable. Unimaginable. Yet, when her
Mm-hmm.
father became needy in his old age, she took care of him. And he did apologize. But who can imagine a life like that? It's way too distressing. And here she is,
Mm.
a happy and loving woman with a family of her own, grandchildren, and because
Yeah.
she got sober young.
You saying that just really made my blood boil, right? Um, for the simple fact of I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
I could not imagine doing that to someone that I love. Now, but if I didn't care about you, then yeah, I'm gonna put my dogs on you. I'm gonna let them get you, things like that. But for a father and a child or a mother, a parent, period,
Yeah.
to do that to a child, that there, now, no. See, I'm too vindictive, right? When it comes down to that, and when and now here's where it gets really strange because I talk about being in the gangs, but no one really asked me why I got into the gangs, right? I got into the
Mhm.
gangs because I wanted to be a part of what they believed in,
Mhm.
right? Not the killing or anything like that, but to policing ourselves, to supporting our communities, to protecting the women and the children and the elderly in our communities. That's what we were formed for, right? You know what I'm saying? Because back then, the brief history. Back in '69 when the White Riots happened, Black Panthers had left California and they
Mhm.
was going to DC. Young Raymond Washington, one of his older brothers, was a Black Panther. And so that's where the Crips was formed. And the
Mhm.
Crips stood for Community Recession in Progress, meaning that we police ourselves because we're so sick and tired of the police coming into our neighborhoods and killing us. And we noticed right off the bat, every time they came in, somebody died,
Mhm.
right? Somebody was going to jail. Somebody was getting beat up. We were getting hurt. So we was like, oh, Tookie Williams, all got together and was like, we're going to form this over here to protect our neighborhood since we're all crammed up in here. And so that's when the Crips was formed. And
Mhm.
everybody keeps thinking, if you look at the news, if you have looked at the news, you see all the violence. It didn't used to be like that.
Mhm.
It didn't used to be like that. It stood for something. It stood for
Mhm.
something positive. It stood for, hey, leave us alone. If we have a problem, we'll deal with them. We'll bring them to you. Don't come in here no more, right?
Mhm.
Let us rebuild what we have in a way to where we don't have to live in fear. And then I'm gonna tell you, they didn't like that, Martha. They didn't like that. So in the early 80s, 70, 79, 70, 79, 80, they introduced crack into our
Mhm.
to keep us divided. And that's what started
Mhm.
doing this, right? You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? That's what caused the
Mhm.
division. So they knew they couldn't control us one way. They didn't like to see what we was doing. So they had to
Mhm.
come up with a different way to try to destroy us. Right.
Mhm.
So, and I say that to say this, because, when even being an older gentleman now, right? I've done my fair share of destruction in this world. Lord knows I drank my fair share of alcohol in this world too, right? Um, and being in a place now where I am, I can look back on it and I can say, I have no regrets because now I have the opportunity to give something back more
Mhm.
meaningful than I've ever taken. Um, and so, I can relate to the term, those veterans use. I'd rather hang out with other veterans because they understand where I'm coming from. Now here's the crazy part about it is being a male or female that has ever been in the gangs, we can hang out with veterans because then we realize that we have a lot more in common than just
Mhm.
than the term game banger and veteran, right? Because for one, we've all seen war. If you have been in any sort of gang or military and things like that, only difference is that you had to go across seas to see the wars. I had to stay right here on our own land to see the wars. So, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Instead of having somebody foreign shooting at you, I've had people that live right down the street shoot at me, right? That was the only difference. But we can sit around each other and have conversations and actually relate on a different level because then we're bridging that gap
Mhm.
and begin to support one another, right? You know what I'm saying? And if you notice, a lot of veterans will go into neighborhoods and actually, saying, be out there with the people, feeding or protesting or helping out and things like that, because they realize that this is how we connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I take nothing away from my veterans. I love my veterans to death because they've done something that I could never do, right? So, or I never made the decision to do, which was go out and sacrifice my life for a country that didn't care about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I don't want to be disrespectful, but in my opinion, my country don't care about me.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care about me, right? You know what I'm saying? I've had to live in this world and watch people that was doing a lot worse than me, and you know what I'm saying, and watch how the country treated them versus how they. And I was like, nah, I don't care, right? So I kept it moving. Now, with that being said, and everything, you know, you got a son now you have a child and things like that. And I love what you said in the beginning, like what I'm saying, like you just said yes to everything, and it had those adverse effects. Like this is probably not the best thing to do, right? What I'm saying. How was that? How did that come about? Where you was just like, yeah, maybe we need to start telling him no.
Everybody was miserable. Everybody was miserable. He was miserable. His dad. I was miserable. My mother-in-law one time she said, he'd be a nice child if he'd just accept no for an answer. No kidding, Mom. No kidding. I'm with you all the way. And then one day, what happened was, he had me trained. Tony, that child had me trained, and his dad, both of us. I bought him a toy one time. I used to buy him two of the same toy, just so that when he broke one, I didn't have to go back to the store to get the other. And he trained me to do that because one time I bought him a toy and he broke it. And it was like 8 o'clock at night. He breaks his toy and he goes, "My toy's broke." And I said, "Oh, that's sad, dear." And he goes, "Well, let's go get me a new one. Go get me a new one." I said, "It's 8 o'clock at night. I'm not going out." And he goes, "No, I want a new one. I want a new toy. It's broken. I got to have another one right now." And he was just like unbelievable. I did not go and get another toy. That's when he taught me to buy two of the same. I wasn't right. But at least I didn't go out and get a new toy that night. But anyway, the next day I'm sure we went and got him another toy. But so I thought, there's something wrong with this picture. This is not right, Martha. And you've got to get control of this. He needs to learn to take no for an answer. So I got the information I needed, and in 6 weeks I had a new child. In 6 weeks, and that's the information that I put in this book. And let me tell you what the chapters are in this book. And here's what it took. It takes. You can't quit when something doesn't work. You can't quit. You know, I took parenting lessons, which are the same thing that I teach, and they said to me, "What we teach you works, and if you do what we tell you, it will work." And I thought to myself, you know what? As long as they don't tell me to be mean to my child or to hit him, I'm going to do whatever they tell me because I knew you never talk mean to a child or say mean things, and you certainly don't hit a child. We never did that. And so I thought, so if it's as long as they're not telling me to be mean or to hurt my child, I'm going to do whatever they tell me. And I'm telling you, I did not give up. Maybe it would work the first time. Of course, it's not going to work the first time because if you tell a child, if a child is used to you always giving in, they're going to push and push it. They're not going to believe that you mean what you meant. They're not going to believe what she said. No, she doesn't believe that. They're going to push and push and push. And the first few times that you say no and mean it, they're going to push until they go crazy. And let me give you an example. One day, I took him to the store, and he said, it was the mall, and he said, "Buy me a toy." I said, "No, when I'm finished shopping, if you're good, well, I'll buy you a toy." And he goes, "No, give it to me now, give it to me now." And I knew better, but I did. So I said, "Look, I'm going to get you this toy now, but if you don't behave, I'm taking it back." Well, I had never done anything like that. He didn't believe that. He thought I was lying. And really, I had no idea. Well, anyway, so he didn't. He would not let me shop. He was a little jerk. And so I said, we're taking that toy back. So I go to the toy store and I take it back. He went nuts. He had a tantrum to beat all tantrums. He was 4 years old, going crazy, screaming and crying and jumping and trying to kick me and screaming and just going nuts. So I pick him up and I'm walking him out of the mall and I'm like, it's okay to be mad at mommy. It's not okay to hurt mommy.
Oh,
Luckily, his little legs weren't long enough to get me. And so as I'm walking him out the mall, these people are saying she should hit that kid. Well, what had happened was I had fried his little brain. He was in shock that I actually said no and meant it.
mhm.
That he actually had a consequence. And he was nuts. So we get in the car. I put him in the back seat. He's still going nuts, screaming, crying, kicking, doing everything. I just sat in the front seat and I was quiet till he calmed down. Took him like 10 or 15 minutes till he had exhausted himself. And I said, are you ready to go home? And he said, yes, put his seatbelt on, and we drove home. And when we got home, I said, you know what? Why don't we both get some rest and then we'll talk? And he went into his room, and I sat out in the living room and thought about how I was going to handle this. But see, he had it was a meltdown. It was temporary insanity, basically,
Mm.
is what happened to him, because he was in shock that I actually said no and meant it. I did exactly what I said I was going to do. He was not going to get away with it this time, and he went nuts. Now, how would hitting him have helped him? It wouldn't. It wouldn't at all. But that was the turning point in our lives. So it really, you could say the worst day was really the best day, because that was the day when I learned, guess what? I can say no and mean it. And he can learn mom said no and she means it.
Mm.
But
See,
anyway,
and
so
I agree with that, right? I definitely agree with that. Thank you. And here in a bit, I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna have you tell people where they can find the book as well, and then we're gonna dive deeper into it if you don't mind. I agree with that. And I grew up getting my butt whipped, and the way that it was explained to me, right? And this is where the differences come from. I believe my mother told me at an early age. She understood the world from a different set of eyes, right? Watching children get killed and go to
mm,
jail, watching her brothers, watching her friends, especially the men, things like that, right? And most parents had this start in their head, especially the ones who didn't go to jail. They learned a valuable lesson inside of the home. When they messed up, there was consequences.
mhm,
And my mother told me, she said, son, I don't want to be hard on you. But if I don't be hard on you, they're going to teach you a valuable lesson, calling the police, right? That's what she was talking about the police. She goes, so I would rather discipline you now to show you that there's consequences to your actions than to have you go out here into this world and have them teach you the lesson
mm,
of discipline by hurting you, taking you away from me, or even worse, killing you. She goes,
mhm,
baby, as much as I hate to say it, my goal is to get you to come home safely to me. And the key words, I want you to come home.
mhm,
So this is how and that's why I was like, wow, that is crazy. And so when I have my son, now granted, what I'm saying, like growing up like that, have my son, I was hard on him there in the beginning. Then he taught me to see life through his eyes, and I realized that we had lived in different times. I'm not around the gangs
mhm,
anymore. But
mhm,
now him being a mixed kid, I had to explain to his mother, there's some things that I'm going to have to teach him that you don't have no idea about. And she goes, what that mean? I said, because at the end of the day, I want him to come home.
mhm,
I want him to come home. So I have to teach him a few rules that he's going to have to live by. And I tell you, and I grieved that because I knew right then and there that he wasn't going to be able to have a life where, you know what I'm saying, he's not going to have to not be on his P's and Q's when he's going out. There's certain rules that he's going to have to follow that his peers may not have to follow, right? Or his
Mhm.
may not have to follow. And we grew up in, I was raising him in a predominantly white neighborhood,
Mhm.
right? You know what I'm saying? With his friends and everything, you know what I'm saying? They got the chance to go out there and ride their bikes and things like that. My son had an encounter with the police one time, all because he was trying to help another kid. Got on his cop's butt. I got on his butt because, for one, I get a call talking about my son is in the principal's office. I get down there, my son is just like do 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 do. I said, Bubba, what's going on? And the cop tried to. I was like, hold on, before you talk to me, I want to hear what my son got to say first. You know what I'm saying? Then I'll come back out and I'll talk with you. And the cop was like, whoa. I was like, no, because for one, you have two sides of the story. I want to get his side first because he
Mhm.
was the one that's involved in it. You came after the fact. And for the simple fact of that he is sitting in the office by himself. And the kid that's sitting right there is with his parents. So therefore, my son is at a disadvantage. I want to hear his side of the story. Good morning, I the truth. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're oh wow. Oh, I love that. Love hearing about the reality TV insights. Any advice for aspiring creatives? Um, well, I'll get to that. Probably just not right now. Okay. But when I went down there and I'm talking to my son, I go back out there to see that he had a bully, right? Um, he had a bully, and his bully was bigger than him.
Mhm.
And I don't even know who Dominique is. Uh, yeah, so probably not the right podcast for you, brother. Um, But yeah, and so I go back out there. My son told me the story, and I go back out there, and I was going, you know what? This is crazy. I was like, my son just told me that my son is short. Your son is damn near 5 foot, 5'6", and he's only what 12 years old. I mean, not even 12, because my
Mhm.
son was 6 at the time. And I was like, this is crazy, man. I was like, so you're mad because your son pushed my son off the monkey bar on the second story monkey bar, and then tried to jump on him. And when he did, my son got up and worked him over because he wasn't going to let your son hurt him. I said, so you mad because he did that? I said, and then on top of that, I said, let me just ask around real quick. I said, because he went to the teachers and told you what was going on, correct? Yeah. And the teachers was like, yeah. I said, and you still didn't do anything.
Mhm.
Still didn't do anything. Y'all separated. He figured out how to get back over there and do something to him. I said, so now let me get this straight. I said, so what this had been a different viewpoint had your son hurt my son? I said, because I can tell you right now, the thing with the difference between me and y'all is that I teach my son how to protect himself. Not to hurt anybody, but to protect himself from everyone. You're not just gonna hurt him. He's going to get you first, right? And he's a born fighter, so I can already tell you that. I said, secondly, I said, cop. I said, Mr. Officer. I said, so you thought that it was okay to separate him and put him out here instead of addressing the problems of him being a bully. I
Mhm.
said, see, this is why I teach my son the way that I do. This is exactly why I teach my son the way that I do. I said, because for one, my job is to make sure that he comes home safe. And had I
Mhm.
not, he would have been in your presence. And you just showed me right then and there the differences between him coming home safe and then him going with you. So you tell me, what am I supposed to do? I said, because I'm gonna tell you right now, he's not getting in trouble. As a matter of fact, we're gonna leave here. I'm taking him go get ice cream. Right?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? If you want to suspend him, suspend him. I have no problem suspending no time with my son. I said, but the one thing that I'm not gonna do, I'm not gonna sit up here and get on his butt for defending himself. And I looked at the parents of that other child. I said, look, you tell your child to keep his hands to himself.
Mhm.
What my son did to him ain't nothing compared to what he can do to him. Did you leave him to put his hands to himself? He'll never have that problem again. Right? And they just, oh, I was like, no, no, no. See, that's the difference between you and I. I live in the real world. You
Mm,
live in a world where you have too much time on your hands. I said, so if it wasn't for you doing all of these things, I wouldn't have to teach my son these things.
mm,
He'll never be free in this world. He's a mixed kid. He already got 5 strikes against him.
mm.
But he has one big plus in that he has a father who cares about him. Y'all don't have to care about him. I do. My job is to protect him. His job is to protect himself and those who can't protect themselves. I said,
And that
that's
is such a big plus to have a father on his side, to have a father. I heard a judge say once that he had never had a man come before him in court who had a father. Is that
yeah,
something?
yeah, yeah. And you know, we need to get back to that, right? Because people don't understand the grieving aspect that comes along with that when children grow up without their parents. And look, I don't take nothing away from having a father in your home or having a mother in your home. Either or, you know, one's a nurturer, one's a provider and protector.
Mm-hmm.
We need both.
Right.
We need both in order for our homes to have healthy children. Um, and positive leaders out here in the world because they can see the things that we can't see, especially growing up in the day and age that we grew up in now.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have that, there's a sense of wanting, a sense of belonging, a sense of,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, trying to find purpose and meaning in life,
That's
but you
right.
don't have anyone to teach you that. And that's why it's important to have people like Martha and so many other amazing people out there to be role models, to help guide, you know what I'm saying, and teach not only the parents, but to
Mm-hmm.
teach the children,
Mm-hmm.
right? But also to teach the people around them to be better human beings. We can heal. We can
Right.
actually heal the trauma. We can heal the addiction. We can heal the abandonment issues. We can have healthier relationships with one another, right?
Exactly.
And unity.
Exactly.
We can grow. We can grow, and then we get to a point to where we won't have to have the Tonys or the Marthas in the world because we've been able to pass that information on, and then we can have the Jeffreys, we can have the Joneses, we can have the Brendas, we can have all of these other individuals that can pick up what we left off,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Exactly.
how we grieve together and heal together. It's just my thought. Again, just my thought, right? You
Lead
know,
by example is so important. Lead by example. You be the good example. You be the good example. Decide for
right?
yourself. Say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to be the good example. I'm going to be the person that goes to the gym every day. I'm going to be the person who smiles even though someone just said something kind of ignorant to me. Who does not, lash out. Yes, I'm going to be the good example.
I'm gonna put this comment up here, and we'll talk about more about this. I the truth. They lived their whole life until they was 29 without any family in their life. Never met their dad to this day, and met their biological mom the first time 5 years ago. Um, I, I never say these things to be right. It just comes from an experience and everything. Now, I did have both of my parents. I moved away from home when I was 15, so I had
Mhm.
been on my own since I was 15, and I live 1,750 miles away from the original state I came from, which is Virginia. And so I'm 50 now, right? And I'm sorry that you had to grow up like that. You know,
Mhm.
life can teach us a lot of different things, and sometimes the lessons that we learn are not the lessons that we want to learn, unfortunately. And so sometimes we look for guidance in different areas. But I really do pray and hope that you had a good example in your life. It seems as if, you know what I'm saying, I love that design that you have right there. I the truth. You're looking at things in a different perspective. And I really hope that you're finding ways of being an example for other people that are out there, giving hope to them as well, being just a positive move because we need a lot of that right now.
Mhm.
And at the age of 29, I commend you for even coming on the show, um, and even wanting to even share that with us. Thank you for your vulnerability. And Martha, I want to get your thoughts on that, and then I will pop up his next comment on here. It's me, Irish. Oh, Irish Chris. You know what? I'm done with you already. No, this guy is a real good friend of mine. And so yeah, no, honestly, he is a great example coming from a place of addiction, homelessness, and climbing outside of there. And he's doing some amazing things in this world. So you talking about someone who's really active in the addiction field. He's a good man. He's definitely a good man, and I'm very honored and privileged to have to even know him. Things like that. So I want to get your thoughts on his first comment, and then we'll start to wrap everything up.
Well, to the person, the 29-year-old, the past does not have to equal the future.
Mhm.
So get therapy, do what you got to do, but make a decision now that you're going to live the life you want. 29, my goodness, you're practically an infant. You've got so many years ahead of you. You could live to be 100. What are you going to do with the next 71 years? You can make an absolutely fabulous life and start now as long as you don't quit. Just don't quit. Keep
Yeah.
doing it no matter what happens. Do not quit. Look at Tony. How long did it take him to get a podcast going and to get guests and to do all the aggravation that comes up every day with the live stream not working and this not working and that not working and this happening and that happening, and but he's still here, plugging away, and consider what he's been through in his life. I had one of my groups at the treatment center. In a group of 8 ladies, 3 of them had lost children. One of
Mhm.
them took both of her sons to alcohol. The other one, drug addiction, and his body was left laying out in the street for a day before anyone came and picked up his body. And the other one lost her baby. So, you know what? Life is for the living, and we need to be examples. And what do we be example of? An example that um, what we've been through can help others.
Mhm.
So you don't have a family. Well, guess what? There are tons of foster children, tons of children who were abandoned, tons of lonely children who will only listen to you because you have the experience they need, and they can believe you because they have the same background that you had, and you can help them immensely as long as you don't fall back into self pity.
He won't. He won't. I won't let him. Right. Ever since I've known him and things like that, he's been good. He's had to struggle. He's had his fair share of struggles. But I would tell you, probably, you know, out of one of the many men that I've met that have found strength from hitting that version of rock bottom and climbing back out of there. Powerful story, amazing individual. And
That's
for him to do the work that he's doing now to take his experience of recovery and go
yeah,
out there to the homeless people, the same people that he was out there with, and go out there and pull them up,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That takes strength and courage, right? And determination to go, I want to see the world in a better place. So, like he is one of those individuals that I've watched come a very, very, very long ways. And I'm always excited to see where he goes, right? But it took
Great.
him changing his environment and creating a different atmosphere in order to do that. And I commend him on that on a day-to-day basis. You know what I'm saying? Well, even when I don't talk to him, and I'm thinking about him going, man, look over these individuals out here that's making a positive impact in the world, right? Because the truth of the matter is, when it's my time to go, I know that there's going to be people coming behind me or just walking beside me that's going to be able to keep carrying that message on. You know what I'm saying? And they're going to pass it on to other people to do it. That's to me, that's a positive thing. That's a good way to live, right? You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? Within purpose, direction, guidance. You know what I'm saying? But also being an example of to others who may not understand it,
That's
right?
right.
Maybe you can be an example to them, and they be able to look at you and go, man, if they can do it, I know I can do it, right?
Hmm.
You just never know. The next person coming behind them is going to say the same thing. If they can do it, I know I can do it, right?
That's right. Exactly.
That's a
Exactly.
path to lead for other individuals, as we enjoy our spiritual experience in the human world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm always saying that because when the body's gone, the energy of the spirit will still live on.
We'll still
And
live
so
on.
let's make sure that we tell our stories. The spirits tell our stories long after we're gone. So, I encourage everybody to have the best possible spiritual experience that you can have, so that when the flesh is gone, people will remember the way that you made them feel.
That's
Um,
right.
Now, and now, with that being said, as we begin to wrap this up, tell people where they can find your book.
Oh yes. Well, the book is up at Amazon, and this is the book. Yes, you can raise happy, responsible children. It's only 60 pages. Pretty much just tells you what to do in all different types of scenarios. And let me just give you the chapter titles: building self-esteem, discipline, creating positive relationships with your children, raising smart children, meal times, at the grocery store, travel, creating a safe home to strengthen your marriage, and praise and encouragement. So it's just a nice guide that you can keep with you and just look through it like, oh, what do I do if he won't put his seatbelt on? What do I do if they won't stay next to me at the grocery store?
Love that. I definitely love that. Now, most definitely, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. I got another podcast coming up in like 30 more minutes, so we'll talk about that sometime today when I get home. Um, so now I'm gonna pose a question to you, and we're switching it up a little bit. That was posed to me yesterday. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
You know, I, I if I had a superpower, what would it be? I think my superpower would be super self-discipline, like Superman. My superpower: resist donuts.
I think you're calling me out, Martha. We're gonna have to talk about this, okay? Don't be calling me out like that, because I had like 2 donuts this morning, okay?
But that's a realistic superpower, right? That's
Yeah.
realistic. Can I please go to the gym every day? Let me make sure I go to the gym every day, even when I say I don't want to go. That's a superpower. And people who have really good discipline, that's what they do. They do what they got to do. And some days, yeah, we give in to the donuts, but if we could plan the donuts, maybe plan the donuts. But yeah, my superpower would be resisting donuts. I like them too much.
See, I'm gonna keep mine to myself because I could not resist the donut. That was like my kryptonite. I was like, oh, the donuts, and I had coffee too. And I really don't eat a whole lot of junk food. And I was like, my mouth started watering, and I saw the sugar, and I was like,
Yeah.
one's not gonna hurt. But I would tell you this, Martha, after 6 of them, I'm thinking I have a problem. Okay, so that you called me out, and I was like, I don't know how to feel about this right now.
Who can eat one donut? That's like an alcoholic only having one drink. It's not possible. Who can eat one donut? Please.
See, and that's what I mean, right? They knew what they was doing when they put him out there, right? I was like, y'all mean for no reason, just mean. Y'all knew I was coming in here, and I go to the gym, right? I do that. I go to the gym, and I was like, you know what? It's been a while since I had a donut. Maybe I could reward myself, right?
Right.
And so when I started picking them, I was like, well, they got the sprinkles on this one. They got the sprinkles on that one. These are cream filled. These are the eclairs, and they got 2 different types of eclairs, right? But then they have the muffin, right? So and then they have 2 muffins. They have the blueberry, and then they have the, the chocolate chip one, and then next thing you know, I had 6 of them in the bag, right? And I ate them. Okay, I ate them. I'm a fat boy. I did. I ate them. Okay.
Yeah, but you're 6'4",
This
250,
is true.
right?
That was my excuse too. That was my excuse. I was like, people would understand. I got a hollow leg. I'm trying to fill it
There,
in.
there you go. It's all good. It's all good.
It's all
You
good.
know what? We
Um,
got to make life worth living.
it
A
is.
donut
It is.
makes life worth
We can always have discipline and things like that. But you gotta make sure that you live in your life too. You
exactly.
know what I'm saying? Don't just not enjoy life and things like that, because you only live once. No
Yeah.
matter what happens, you're not going to prolong the day that you die. You're not going to prolong it, and so enjoy it. Do things in moderation, and other things do it to the best of your ability.
Mhm.
Everything leads to everything else. We're all connected, and that's the beautiful part about it, right? And so, we keep walking, we keep moving, we keep making decisions to brighten up this world, leave it better than what we found it, and give something for the younger generation to come behind to, as an example, um, in what we do,
Mhm.
and hopefully we can inspire them to do better than us. I think that's a
That's right.
beautiful path to walk. And now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Martha, thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you for having this beautiful conversation with me. I really enjoyed it. We must do this again. For everyone, her information is down below. And also, if I'm not mistaken, you put a free gift in there too, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
she does have a free gift in there. Everybody, go to the YouTube channel, go down there, get their free gift. Go, but most importantly, go check out her socials. Go get that book. Tell her Tony sent you, and she has an amazing story. So if you enjoyed this story, you're definitely going to love what she has. All right, and so now with that being said, we're going to close out this episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. For everyone who's been tuning in on the different channels and things like that, do me a favor, head over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And look, check it out. It's scrolling across the bottom. Y'all can follow me on my socials down there too. I got the website, I got LinkedIn, I got IG, I have all of that stuff down there for you guys. So go over there, connect with me on any of those socials, and we're going to keep it rocking and rolling. This is going to conclude this episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast, guys. Thank you. You guys having a wonderful day. I'll see you back here in like 30 more minutes. I'm going to talk to another gentleman, and we're going to have some fun, right? We got a new guy, podcast number 2 coming up. Again, Martha, thank you for showing up here today and sharing your journey with us. I look forward to many more conversations and seeing where our future endeavors take us. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Tony.
much.
Loved it.
Such an honor and privilege. Guys, we'll check you out in a second one. All right, peace.